in studio by one Hannah Faulkner. What's up, Hannah? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Hannah is the ambassador to Gen Z. She's got a great new book out that's available for pre-order now. It's going to be out on January 1st. It's called The Last Chance to Save Our Republic. Why'd you write the book?
Well, my dad had actually been encouraging me to write a book about a year and a half ago. He's like, Hannah, you really need to write a book. Like, you've got all of this information that you've been researching, that you talk about. You should write a book. And I was like, I don't think I'm capable. Like, I think I'm too young. Like, I don't think that I should, write a book. Like, who's going to listen to me? I'm 16. I was 16 at the time. Like, who's going to listen to me, and what I have to say in a book? And so he's like, no, like, you should do this. And so I sat down, I started writing, and then I started researching, and so much history and research that I had never even heard of. And I was asking my grandparents, I was asking, people that were at my church that were, very knowledgeable individuals. I'm like, did you know that this even existed on the topic of abortion? Did you know that, Mao Zedong said this under, the Mao's Cultural Revolution? Like, all of these things that I had never heard of, and most people in America probably haven't even seen or heard that happened. And so I was like, I have to write this. Like, my dad's right. I've got to get this written. And so I started writing, and I started writing it about a year ago. And then I asked General Flynn, who took a chance on me about a year and a half ago at the Reawaken America tour.
Yep.
Let me speak. He had never heard me speak before, and he let me speak. And he's like, I'd love to have you back. And then when I started my show, he was like one of my first guests on the show. And then I asked him, hey, would you be willing to forward my book? And he said, absolutely. So General Flynn has just been very inspirational to me. I mean, he's one of the most genuine, kind-hearted individuals you will ever meet in the political movement. He is all about the mission. And so I'm honored to have him as the forward of the book. But the book itself, I wanted it to be more than just, opinion piece. I didn't want it to be just my opinions. I wanted it to be, yes, like some of my personal beliefs, but historical facts, science, database, stories, things like Paula Scanlon in the free speech chapter when we talk about silence and being censored. Paula Scanlon, she used to go to the University of Pennsylvania where she swam against William Thomas. And when she started to speak out against it, they said that if you dare to speak out about Thomas being on the women's swim team, you will lose scholarships and careers. You're going to lose opportunities. And so I talk about these stories of how we've been silenced, we've been censored, these bullying tactics that they're using at these universities to young women that just don't want to be changing in the locker room or swimming against a man that they have obviously no chance of beating. We talk about the infringement of our Second Amendment. Long history in that. Why are they trying to infringe us? Well, any tyrannical leader, if they want to have control, they're going to disarm their people. That's just what's happened in human history. That's what happened under the Soviet Union. That's what Mao did to his people. I mean, he said if the Communist Party wants full control over its people, they must have the guns. They must have power over the gun.
That's step one in a genocide plot.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so then we talk about the digital age. One of the biggest things I learned, like the average age of someone accessing pornography is age 11. You have 4 kids.
It's terrifying.
It's so sickening to see, just what my generation and Alpha, which is the next generation, is having access to, 24/7 access to. It's very scary. It should alarm every single parent. So we break that down in the 4th chapter, and then we talk about the poison of gender ideology. Where did this stuff even begin? With Alfred Kinsey, John Money, their perversions, and we talk about people like Chloe Cole. 20-year-old detransitioner right now, had her breast removed at age 15, age 13. They put her on chemical castrations.
The Chloe Cole story is so crazy because it really shows the evils of the medical industrial complex and how good parents can be duped by this evil system. Because they said to Chloe Cole's parents, well, you could either have your daughter become your son or she's going to kill herself.
Yep.
There's no in between. And then there's studies that come out that show a lot of these kids grow out of it if you give them time.
Well, they actually just released there was a doctor that was saying that she was like, I don't want this to be released. I don't want it out. She was withholding the information, but it showed that puberty blockers are not beneficial. Like they're releasing all of these studies, and they just released it recently, where puberty blockers there's nothing beneficial about them for children.
Even if you're supportive of the gender ideology, even if you're pro transgender and all that, if you do the puberty blockers, then you can't get those surgeries down the road anyway.
Yeah.
So it highlights the hypocrisy of that entire movement, because you're pushing that on kids. But if you believed in that, then you're removing their opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Well, the doctor said the reason why we don't want this published is because we won't make any more money. So, I mean, once you start thinking about that and start learning where all this money comes from and who's getting the money, I mean, this is a big money grab. This is child abuse. This is an experiment on children is what it is. I mean, they are experimenting. Chloe Cole still has open wounds on her chest to this day, and the doctor that performed the surgery will not help her. They're like, it's your problem now. We're not going to help you.
It's disgusting.
And, I mean, this is the reality of the medical industry and what they're doing to children. But we talk about that in the book. We talk about educational system, how it even got to the point where we have ideologies like critical race theory, gender ideology, where we're debating whether or not kids should have access to pornographic material in state-sponsored schools, American taxpayer-funded schools. People always say, this is government-funded. No, this is not government-funded. This is taxpayer-funded.
Yep.
But then we talk about the greatest issue, I believe, facing our nation, and that's the breakdown of the family. I mean, strong families create a strong society, and I believe that's one of the biggest reasons that we're here is because of the breakdown of the family.
Well, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons you're here is because you have a strong family unit around you. I've met both your parents, and they're great people, and I've met your sisters and your brother. You have a solid family structure, and I think that's one of the reasons why you're able to be so outspoken. Gen Z, though, it seems like your generation has been under some of the biggest attacks by this leftist radical ideology. But I also feel like at the same time, your generation has been able to say, yeah, we're not with that, and rebelled against it in the largest way I've seen. Do you feel the same way? Do you think that Gen Z is going to be rebelling against this leftist radical ideology?
Yeah, well, I mean, not only have we been lied to for decades upon decades, but for the last 4 years, Gen Z has been able to see from COVID-19 to the 2020 election to the weaponization of our federal government against American citizens on January 6th, to wide open borders, creating an influx of crime, drug addiction, homelessness. I mean, all of these things that we're seeing that they're not even able to afford to buy. Like, they want to get married. Gen Z wants to get married. They want to live out the American dream like our founding fathers intended us to be able to live out, and they're not able to. And so I think that's what they were looking at. This is more than just whether or not Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris. Well, like, this is about freedom.
And you can look at a lot of the data is now pointing that the Taylor Swift endorsement and the celebrity endorsements actually sent people the opposite way. And it seems like these idols don't hold the same value for Gen Z that they once did. Like, celebrity culture used to be this big thing. Yeah. And people wanted to know what the celebrities are doing, where they're living, what restaurants they go to. And it seems like Gen Z's like, yeah, don't care at all.
Oh, I mean, if you can't afford to pay for gas, I mean, forget the, Cardi B twerking on Kamala Harris's stage. Like, we just want to be able to live. I mean, that's just a common idea. And you talk about New York City, you talk about Democrat-run cities. I mean, New York City looks great from the skyline view, but once you get down to these cities like Chicago, it smells horrible. You're seeing needles all over the street, homelessness, drug addiction. The crime rate is insanity. And so you look at these Democrat-run cities, what do they look like? It's chaos, mass chaos. And so Gen Z is looking at that thinking, okay, what did Donald Trump do when he was president for the last 4 years? What has Joe Biden and Kamala Harris done for the last 4 years? They've gotten us into endless wars. I mean, with the disgraceful withdrawal from Afghanistan, killing 13 of our soldiers. Yep. So, I mean, this has just been lie after lie. They've manipulated us specifically, I mean, decades upon decades. But for the last 4 years, Gen Z has really been able to see what's happening. So I think Gen Z is just fed up.
Yeah, Gen Z's been radicalized, and I think you guys really have your fingers on the pulse. And I think one of the biggest ways is that you haven't been indoctrinated by the liberal media, by the mainstream legacy media. Your generation has really turned away from that. I don't even think you ever watched. Like, have you ever watched ABC News Tonight? Like, I mean, you might have. Because you're a glutton for punishment like me. But your generation is just like, no, we'll learn about it a different way. We'll dive down our own rabbit holes and go do research. And you're super connected. I mean, you know all of the biggest Gen Z influencers down the line, from Bo Loudon to Barron Trump. Like, what has that been like for you, watching this generation kind of come into age?
I do want to say this as well before I answer that fully. you see how the left has constantly been attacking like President Trump. And I think over this last year and a half, the way that they have, smeared him, called him a Nazi, compared him to Hitler. I mean, they have tried to assassinate him. They have indicted him, impeached him. They're all of these things that they have done to President Trump. They call us the threat to democracy. They've called the January 6ers domestic terrorist. And so we're seeing all this play out. And then you see on the DNC stage where Barack Obama is saying if Donald Trump gets elected, he's going to go after his political opponents. And Gen Z is just watching like, wait a second, aren't you the one that's going after your political opponent right now? Like, what has President Trump done to you guys?
And Rogan made the point, Joe Rogan made the point, it's like the game has passed you by because you can say that and we can just put up that video on YouTube and then put the other video right next to it and then you can make up your own mind on what's really going on.
Yeah.
And it's been wild to see. The book is called Last Chance to Save Our Republic. You can pre-order it now. Hannah Faulkner is in studio. She's the author of the book. You're only 17.
17.
Why, if I'm an adult and I'm looking into grabbing a book, why do I want to hear from you? What angles are different? What style is different with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, Ben Franklin said, or Thomas Jefferson said, the best defense against tyranny is an educated society. And I think, even with Christmas coming up, the best gift you could give a family member is the ability to educate yourself and how to defend your family from a tyrannical government right now. And, throughout the book, like, Yes, I'm 17, but I'm not coming at this, from a 17-year-old's like perspective or a teenager's perspective. Like, this is just the raw truth of what's happened. What happened under the Soviet Union? What happened under Mao's Cultural Revolution? What's happening right now? I mean, how did the family unit become broken? Like, how did the feminist movement break down the family? We, go through all of these ideologies. And then I end the book off with my message to Gen Z. So while this book, I believe every parent should buy this for their kids, for their young, children, I think every parent should read this because we talk about like the threats that social media, the threats that pornography are having to young people. And I think it would be just like a parenting manual, honestly, for parents. So anybody at any age, this is for anyone really should read this.
Well, and I will go on record and I say, the book industry is so weird, man. A lot of people don't write their own books, but so full disclosure, my daughter Kennedy is really good friends with your youngest sister Sarah, and they do plays together. And we've known the Faulkners for a long time. But I heard of you before they linked up. They linked up organically on their own. But I have come over to your home to pick up my daughter, and I've seen you writing your own book, which is like refreshing because you can buy books from big names, and there is no guarantee that they even wrote it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, no, everything I wrote, I spent like hours till like 3 a.m. Writing that many days. I'd be up till like 3 a.m. My dad's like, you need to come to bed. I'm like, nope, this is really, I'm engraved in this topic. Like we got to finish this.
I'm in the zone. So when you're talking to Gen Zers, what are the biggest issues that are facing that generation coming up next?
Well, I think, first and foremost, these ideologies that are in public education, these things that they're perverting their minds with, like if you don't feel like you're born in the right body. And I was saying this the other day, Adam Mockler, I have him on my show often to debate. He's a far leftist. He voted for Joe Biden, voted for Kamala Harris. We have him on to debate. And I asked him, I told him, I said, you claim to be, for all of these things. And he was like, we were talking about abortion. He's like, well, I've never seen what an abortion looks like. And I'm like, okay, so you guys are telling me right now that you have never seen what an abortion looks like, but you will defend this to the end.
There's so many of them like that.
Yeah.
If you ever want to watch an abortion on an ultrasound, it's going to scar you forever.
Yeah.
Like you see the baby running away from the instruments. It's awful. It's absolutely awful.
Well, and here's the biggest problem I have with them is they'll say, if you show them the pictures, if you show them the videos, they'll say, well, that's violent and inappropriate. I don't want to see it. Explain to me how the act of murdering a child is safe and normal and okay, but the pictures and the videos are violent and inappropriate, right? It's all hypocrisy. I mean, everything the left is standing on is total hypocrisy. But the greatest threat, I believe, facing Generation Z and the next generations, I would say number one is the lack of biblical influence. I mean, this is the most biblically illiterate generation. We have completely removed God from the schools.
Yep.
We've removed God from the homes. I mean, that's where it started, is we removed God from the home first. And so parents listening right now, they've got to start educating their children on the why behind the what. Take your kids to church.
Yep.
Talk to them about what's happening in our country right now. I mean, so many families are broken because they're separated. Everybody's in a different room. Like, sit down with your kids. I know you do this with your kids often.
Yep.
You talk to them. You have a relationship with them. That's the most important thing that you could do as a parent, is just have a relationship with your kids. Connect with them.
I practice brutal honesty with my daughter. And anybody's heard Kennedy on the show. It's like, I try to be as brutally honest about anything. So, hey, Dad, what happened to JFK? And I'll be like, well, it depends on who you ask. But some people say the CIA. Some people say it was other foreign agencies. Some people say it was just one guy. Yeah. Do your own research. But just brutal honesty. Yeah. And when you have those moments where the questions come up, lean into it.
Yeah. Well, I think so often parents are like, I don't want to talk about it, too busy. It's like, brush it off. And so your kids, especially at a young age, they're yearning for you to talk to them. They want to have that relationship. They want you to answer their questions, and they want to learn. And so once they're in their teenage years, I mean, it's going to be a lot harder to get that back.
100%.
So take those younger years, under the age of 10, 11, 12 years old. I mean, those are the years where they're really going to be seeking out your advice and what you want. So take those years to pour into them.
Yep.
Because, once they're in their teenage years, it's going to be really hard to kind of start over.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Hannah Faulkner, she's got a new book out. You can pre-order it now. Last Chance to Save Our Republic. Where can we pre-order the book?
Yeah, so cultureof1776.com is my website. That might be the easiest way. It'll take
cultureof1776.com.
Yes.
Cultureof1776.com.
Yes. Or you can just go to Amazon, Last Chance to Save Our Republic. It's in almost any bookstore you can get it. So
I love it. Congratulations on the book. I know you've been working your butt off on it, and it shows. You also host a show.
Yes, the Hannah Faulkner Show. It's on Rumble. We air it 5 days a week. Have several different guests on every week, so it's exciting.
Cool. And where can we find you on Twitter?
Hannah F1776.
Hannah F1776, and it's Hannah with an H on the end. HANNAH.
Yes.
Hannah F1776.